So today we're going to leave off, we're going to start off with Explain 2, and we're only going to do Explain 2, and then you're going to hopefully have some time to work in class a little bit. So we're going to be rewriting the equation of the circle, and we're also going to graph the circle. So I'm going to read this paragraph with you since I'm not there today. Let me grab a different color here. All right, so we're going to be expanding the standard form of the equation. So this we learned yesterday is our standard form of our circle. And this results in a second degree equation in two variables of this form. So what they did here is basically they're doing some foiling to make a different standard form. If I were to foil this out with some numbers in it, I would get some generic coefficients, and that's what they're using the C, the D, and the E for, is some generic coefficient numbers, okay? In order to graph such an equation, or in even more general form, the ax squared plus ay squared plus cx plus d plus e equals 0, you must complete the square on both the x and the y to put the equation in standard form and identify the circle's center and radius. Okay, that's a really important sentence. You must complete the square on both x and y to put standard form and identify the circle's center and radius. So if we're going to graph it, we need to have the two things, the center and the radius. And then in order to figure out, in order to get it into that form to identify the center and the radius, we have to complete the square on both the x and the y. So the first thing that they did here, so they gave us this equation, and the first thing, they just rewrote the equation. Then what they did is they rearranged the x's to be together and the y's to be together. So we're going to take this and group it with the x, and we're going to take this piece and group it with the y, okay? At the same time they were doing that, they wrote the grouping and they added in their plus blank, just like we did when we were completing the square. And they moved this 30, the constant, to the other side. So they did that by subtracting. And remember, we have two blanks now on the left, so we're going to have two blanks on the right to fill in. Okay. Then what we did, in fact, I'm not even going to, let's kind of ignore this line for right now. Okay. Let's actually do our completing the square. Okay, so to do my completing the square, I take this middle term right here and I divide it by 2. Okay, when I divide by 2, this cheating factoring setup, I get -5. And then I square it and I get 25, and I put that on both sides, because whatever I do to the left, I have to do to the right. But green is not working for me. Let's try purple. All right, then I'm going to do the same thing with the y. I'm going to take the middle term and divide it by 2. When I do that, I get 3. And then when I square the 3, I get 9 to both sides. So I completed the square on both sides. I have the cheating factoring set up. When I add these guys together, -30, +25, and +9, I get a 4. So now we've had the equation of the circle. Remember, to get our center, I'm just going to abbreviate center as C. I have to change the signs coming in or out of the parentheses. So I'm going to, flip this to a +5 and a -3. And then the radius, you actually want to calculate that. So to get the radius, we would take the square root of 4, which is just 2. All right, so here's what I would do to graph it. So we're going to count out 5, it's -3. So I'm going to go out 5 and down 3 and draw my center point. Then what I would do is I would count that radius in 4 directions to sketch the circle. So I count the radius up 2, down 2, to the left 2, to the right 2, and then I sketch my circle through those points. Okay, so before I make it harder, let's skip to where it says your turn 5, and let's try this without the leading coefficient first, because we're going to have the leading coefficient. It's going to work. It's going to have a little bit of a trick to it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is rearrange. So I'm going to get my x's together and my y's together and any of my constants onto the other side. So I've got x squared plus 4x plus blank. And if I have a plus blank on the left, I got to put it on the right. And then I've got y squared plus 6y plus blank, and I have another plus blank on the other side. And then to move that 4 over, we would subtract it. I'm going to set these both up for cheating factoring. So x something squared plus y something squared equals whatever we get when we add up those blanks. All right, so now we're going to do our completing the square step, just like we were doing last week and the week before. So to complete the square, we divide the middle by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then we square it, which would get 4 to both sides. We're going to take the 6 and divide it by 2. We get 3. We're going to square that. We get 9 to both sides. Then you'll notice that my -4 and my +4, let me find another color, my -4 and my +4 cancel, and I'm just left with 9. So we're going to find the center, the center and the radius. So the center, we're going to read out of these our H and K out of here, and we're going to flip our signs coming out of parentheses. So we're going to have -2, -3. And then to get the radius, remember I take the square root of that number. So I take the square root of 9 and I end up with 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph the circle. So I'm going to plot out -2 and down 3 and draw my center. And then I'm going to count 3 in each direction for my radius. So 3 up, 3 down, 3 to the left, 3 to the right. And then go ahead and connect our dots with one smooth curve that hopefully looks like a circle. Mine's sort of okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the B part, okay? And it's going to be a little bit different, okay? I'm trying to think about what I want to use here. All right, I'm looking at their steps. I'm okay using their steps. I'm going to probably, I'm going to probably get rid of this line here, okay? So, okay, because they do show a little bit of something where something comes from. I would have probably done it differently. I'll probably do it differently in the other one slightly. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rearrange it, okay? Yeah. All right, so what they did is first thing, they kind of skipped a step in here. So let's go ahead and rearrange it. So I would have probably, and I'm going to squeeze it right in here. So I have 4x squared plus 8x. I'm trying to get my x's together and my y's together. And then plus 4y squared minus 16y. And I would probably in this step subtract the 11 over. They didn't do that in theirs, but they do it eventually. Then what I want you to notice is I'm going to put these I'm going to put some parentheses around my groups here. Sorry. Around this group and around this group. What I want you to notice is there's a greatest common factor in there. Actually, I only want the greatest common factor on the number. So I'm going to factor a 4 out of that, which would leave me the x squared plus 2x. And a factor of 4 out of this, which is going to leave me the y squared minus 4y. And then the 11 is kind of on its own. That's why I put it over to the other side. Now that we've got this, we're going to add in our plus blanks and do our cheating factoring. Okay, so that's what they did in this line right here. So we added in our plus blank on the left and the right, and our plus blank on the left and the right, and our 11 is now over on the right side. Now, and then they set up the factoring piece with the 4s out front. Okay, so we're going to do our completing the square rules. I'm going to divide by 2, which is going to get me 1. And when I square the 1, that's going to get me 1 again. Here's the deal, though. In order to put this on the other side, it's not really a 1. It's 1 times that 4 that's on the other side. So that's why they put the 4 there. Okay. So basically, in order to get it out of the parentheses jail, you have to multiply it by 4 in front. Okay. All right. When I divide this one by 2, there it goes. Divide by 2. I get -2. When I square it, I get 4. And then I'm going to multiply it by this 4 out front to get it out of parentheses jail. Okay. They didn't leave us any room to get this work done, did they? So let's see what we get here. So let's see. I'm seeing -11 plus 4 plus 16 Negative 11 and positive 16 is 5, and then 4 plus 5 is 9. Okay. Making sure I did it right. Yep. Okay, so then what they want us to do is they want us to divide both sides by 4. So I divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. So these 4s end up canceling. And you get x plus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 9/4. So if we fill in their little blanks for center, remember we change our sign. So I've got negative 1, positive 2. And then the radius, I take the square root of the 9/4, which would be 3/2. Which is kind of an ugly radius, but we're going to deal with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plot that. So we're going to go out negative 1 and up 2. Then we're going to count out 3/2, which is about 1 1/2. I'm going to go out about a 1 1/2, up about 1 1/2, to the left 1 1/2, and down 1 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and connect my dots with a circle. All right, when I get to this step in mine, I'm probably just going to automatically multiply by that coefficient and just write that number there instead of showing this piece. If you need to show that piece, that's fine. But I'm going to take one little shortcut on that. All right, so let's take a look at number 6. The first thing I would do would be rearrange the order and get the x's together and the y's together. And I'm going to move the 209 over to the other side. So 9x squared minus 54x plus 9y squared minus 72y, and I'm going to subtract the 209 from both sides. So we get negative 209. And we're going to notice that I can group this and this. I'm going to ignore the variables and just look at the numbers. I can factor a 9 out of this first group. So when I factor a 9 out, I get x squared minus 6x. I'm going to add in my plus blank, so plus blank. Out of this group, I can also take out a 9, and that means we've got y squared minus 8y plus blank. And because I have 2 blanks on the left, I have to have 2 blanks on the right. All right, and at the same time, I'm going to set up for my cheating factor, and I have to have those 9 coefficients in there because it's part of the problem. Okay, so now we're going to complete the square. We're going to follow our rules that say divide by 2. So when I divide by 2, I get 3, and then I square it, I get 9. In order to put this on the other side, I have to get it out of parentheses jail. So I have to take 9 times 9, and that gets me 81. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to divide it by 2. When I divide it by 2, I get negative 4. When I square it, I get 16. But in order to get out of parentheses jail here, I multiply it by the 9. Sorry, I'm going to have to use my calculator here. 9 times 16 is 144. All right, and then when I add up the 81, the 144, and the negative 209, I end up with 16. Now I can't keep that coefficient there, so we're going to divide both sides or divide everything by the coefficient of 9. So that gives me x plus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 9 over 16. We need to find the center and the radius. So to find the center, I'm just going to swap my signs. So I've got negative 3, positive 4. And then to find the radius, I take the square root of the 16/4. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 4 is, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. It's 16/9. Square root of 9 is 3. So that's kind of the same as 1 and 1/3, right? 3 goes in there one time with 1 left over. All right, so we're going to go ahead and graph it. So I'm supposed to go out negative 3 and up 4. That seems to be something wrong. What did I do wrong? It was supposed to be negative 3. I have a typo right here. Look at this. I messed that up, didn't I? So let me fix it. I'm going to fix it in red. So this should have been a minus 3. This should, see how that messed up the whole problem? That should be a minus 3, which makes this a plus 3. All right, so we're going to go positive 3, positive 4. If the graph patch hadn't been scaled, I wouldn't have probably caught that. And then I got to count out about 1 1/3 from in each direction. So 1 1/3, a little bit beyond 1. And there's my circle. All right, so now what you're going to do to get the rest of the points on your notes, okay, because I will be collecting notes on the next time we have a test, is you need to do the writing piece here. We're going to skip explain 3. But we're going to look at the elaborate. So I want you to, in your own words, answer elaborate 9 and elaborate 10 and then elaborate 12, which is the essential question check. We didn't do anything with the inequalities and we're not going to, so we're going to skip over 11. And then you need to look at the homework assignment that's posted in Haiku and do that.